Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Video Game Vibes podcast. Here with me, your boy PatriotJax, and of course, Mr. Grog Games, Super Potion himself. How you doing, my dude?
I'm glad to be here, Cotton. It's been a crazy last few days for me.
Who else gets that reference? What a classic film that is.
Oh boy, yeah, you know, classic throwbacks here. That's what we do.
That was Jason Bateman before he got good.
Oh my gosh, I forgot that was Jason Bateman.
Yeah, man.
Before he had a career.
Man.
Anyway.
That was like his Arrested Development days, wasn't it?
Oh my god.
Or was that a bit before that? It was around that. Must have been.
I missed the whole Arrested Development phase, and I just watched it last year or something.
I watched it a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I love Jason Bateman, but I don't know about Arrested Development. It was just so dumb at times.
Like the first three, like when I started watching, I fell in love. I thought it was hilarious. Like I genuinely loved it. At least the first sort of couple of seasons. Then it got a bit, as most shows do, it just got sort of progressively worse.
Right.
But those first couple of seasons, I don't know. The humor kind of got me. To be fair, I really enjoyed it.
I feel like there were high and lows, but yeah, it was good. Anyway, this is a video game podcast, which is good. We're going to be talking about video games in a little bit here. For those of you that don't know what I meant by this crazy last week for me, before we get to all the lovely video game stuff, just a little check-in. I've been so sick the last 9 days. I had the big C that everyone had contracted.
That's COVID, by the way, guys.
Not the other one. I just thought of that the other day too. I keep calling it the big C. What I mean by that is COVID. I've been sick since last Thursday. It's been awful. But guess what? Guess who freaking tested negative today? This guy right here. Finally, after 9 days, I am free, baby.
Jesus. Do you know what's funny? And bear in mind, we live in two different countries. I had COVID basically a week before you did.
Right.
I just find it very weird.
I don't know. I think it's because it's the season 2 and stuff, maybe. I don't know. All I know is I got it from my gym, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure a little child, 15-year-old, gave it to me by accident. I don't know.
Sort of like after season 3 of Arrested Development, there should be no more. They should end that series of COVID. There should not be any more seasons.
There should be no more series of COVID. No. Yeah, COVID should just be taken off the playing field of Earth right now, and just give me a new one. Yeah, it's fun. But yeah, we're back. I'm excited to be here, and I had the only good thing that happened to me while I was sick was I got to play more video games than normal, Jax. I played way more video games than normal because I couldn't go anywhere or do anything. And so I just played a lot of RuneScape the whole entire time because the first few days I couldn't even get up and go to my office here. I had to stay in bed on my laptop. And, my laptop can't play every single game ever, so I was sticking to a select few games, and I just got back into RuneScape a ton. I think I talked about it a little before on the pod, but just want everyone to know my craze is still there. It's still there.
I was just going to ask, so what have you been playing lately? But I guess it's basically just RuneScape.
Yeah, basically just RuneScape. I only have Dragon Slayer left, which is the last quest. And apart from that, I'm going to beat some free-to-play bosses. Got 58 magic, which, for those of you that don't know, after you hit 55, you get High Alch, which means it's a good money-making method. Anyway, I'm very excited. I've never got... This is sort of a child dream for me, Jax. Haven't you ever had, one of those video game childhood dreams where you're like, I wish I could beat this in a game or something like that, like a goal that you couldn't do when you were a kid?
There's probably loads in my head that I can't think of at the minute, but there's plenty of games a long time ago that I wish I had done something specifically on. like I'm in it now because I'm like level 80. But even in Elden Ring, I kind of wish I went for like a magic, like a faith build rather than the strength build, because well, I just see all the TikTok edits and they look much more fun and like better looking than your strength builds. But you know, that's more recent. A long time ago, I'm not sure, but you must be very excited.
I feel like it's Christmas every day when I play that game. Yeah, it's just great. It's sort of like almost a bucket list item that I'm accomplishing right now, and I feel very proud. What have you been playing though, Jax? Oh wait, hold up. I think we need to spend a few minutes talking about how your boy Jax has hit 10K on YouTube.
You're kind, dude.
You didn't have to throw that in there. We're throwing it out there. We need to talk about it.
Feel free to sub, guys. 10K, let's go.
How are you feeling about it? That's huge.
Yeah, I'm buzzing, but like, it's funny because like, obviously, when a couple of videos like pop off and stuff, and then all the subs go, and it's just crazy. And now I feel like the pressure. I need to maintain that because like you end up looking at the analytics thing on YouTube Studio, and you're like, and it goes down. You're like, it shouldn't be like that. It's like a real strain on your mental health. It's not something that I try and avoid it as much as possible. But sometimes it's hard not to. But no, it's honestly it's great. Like that was one of my original like goals. Of like 10K was sort of like a big one.
Right. Yeah, that's always been one of my goals. I've always wanted to hit. Hitting
like absolutely. So to hit it now is it's nuts, and I'm grateful for everyone that subscribed and supports the channel. But it's great, and I'm just gonna keep on going, and I expect to see you there very soon as well, my dude.
We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. You've got some good videos, and I feel like I'm just putzing around doing whatever. So we'll see what happens. But I'm excited for you, dude. I'm really excited for you.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate it. But to answer your original question, I have not been playing Hollow Knight.
What?
I've been playing... It's on my... I showed you my spreadsheet of games I want to complete this year.
Yes, you did.
Skyward Sword, Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, that I bought when it came out on the Switch, the HD version. I've been playing that because it's another game that I want to... Well, obviously I bought it, so I should obviously want to complete it, but I was so put off by the fact that you either basically use motion controls, like you use the Joy-Cons, and that's how you like slash your sword and use your shield and stuff.
Yeah.
Or when you're like in handheld mode, you would use the right analog stick to slash your sword and stuff, and that it just bothers me so much to the point where I had to put the game down. I was just like, I'm not enjoying the gameplay at all.
Right. Yeah.
And I love Zelda games, so I want to enjoy like the story and learn about it, because I never played that Zelda when it first came out on the Wii, and that's part of the reason why I didn't play it, because it came out on the Wii and you had to use motion controls, and it's great for Wii Sports, but for me, I didn't want to play a Zelda game with freaking motion controls. But anyway, so I've been playing it, and I have been getting into it. I've gotten used to the right analog stick as much as I can. I wish that it was just like the B button or something just to slash your sword, but hey, there it is, and I'm making my way through it. I struggle to see how a lot of people call it their favourite Zelda though, but everyone's different. Could have been some people's first Zelda growing up. That's something that I kind of keep in mind when I'm sort of going off on a tangent here.
Oh, please go on a tangent, yeah.
So, okay. A while back, I did a couple of shorts where I rank video game series based on and use like memes to sort of rank them. And I did the Resident Evil series, which was very... the comments are colourful, shall we say.
To put it lightly, yeah.
There's two games in the series that I particularly wasn't very fond of, Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6. And there's a lot of comments about people that were saying, those were really good games, or like those were really good games. I remember playing them growing up, and and it just made me think that how much of you playing a game when you were younger has an influence on how good you think it is. Like, I think there's a real
there's it's the
nostalgia filter thing, isn't it? It's like rose tinted glasses and all that sort of stuff. Genuinely think I'm not obviously dismissing someone's opinion, because they could really enjoy those games, but
right
in the entire series, it just surprises me how much people were like dying on that hill for Resident Evil 6, when it's everyone has a different opinion. It surprised me the amount of comments that there were saying about how good, it's more of a case of how good how much they enjoyed it. But I don't know. I feel like believe.
You also got to look at it this way, Jax, that like the people that comment that you're wrong and those are good games, the people that speak up are the ones that have the opposite opinion. So for all those people, there's probably 10 people behind that one person who aren't saying anything because they agree with you. So
it's a very good point.
Yeah, I mean, like, how many views did that get, and how many comments did you get that were negative? So, like, you gotta be like, a bunch of people probably saw it and they're like, oh yeah, this guy's on point, 100%, 5 and 6? No, they weren't that good.
There's not one or two comments where someone's like, yeah, bang on.
Well, that's because they were probably like, we don't need to stick up for this guy, he's right, I agree with him.
there you go. But yeah, it just kind of fascinates me to an extent of how much, like, and I'm an example of that when it comes to like Ocarina of Time. It was the first Zelda game I played, and it's like still my favourite game of all time. Mm-hmm. Although I am acutely aware that there are a lot of things that aren't great about that game, and I still consider it like my favourite game of all time. So, it's interesting. And like I say, for people who really enjoy Skyward Sword, it would not surprise me if, like, the Wii was like one of their first consoles. They were a different generation, and they had that, and they were blown away by Skyward Sword at that time. Just some food for thought.
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, the Wii was a great system, and I'm sure there are people that are younger than us out there that hold that as their go-to system, whereas like us, we're more PS2, GameCube. We're the best systems of all time. So
I have a question for you, and
please,
this is for the older millennials.
Are we dating ourselves right now?
No, well, maybe, yeah. Do you like? I did this for a long time, and it's only sort of the last couple of years where I've sort of been like, no, okay, that's definitely not the case. Do you ever look at people on TV and always assume that the majority of them are older than you? And don't ask me why. I have this weird...
Like famous people or just like anyone?
Yeah, like if you're watching like a reality show or, like for the vast majority, like I'll watch Love Island and in my head I'll be like, these guys are older than me. And I'm like, that's definitely not true. Like these people were born like past 2000. True.
I agree with you. No, I don't know if it's like the camera lens or something, but I was watching Bachelor last night because I was making up for it because I was sick the week before. And like I'm like looking at these people, and when they show up, they say like, oh, Katie's 27, blah, blah, like it's labeled at the bottom, so you're constantly seeing like, oh, she's an airline pilot or whatever, and this is her age. And it's like, I'm like, that lady does not look 27. She looks like she's 34. And like, I have no idea. And like, I feel like I look younger than a ton of celebrities or just reality people. I don't know why. And then my wife doesn't help either, because my wife is Korean, so she's just gonna look young forever and ever. But yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying. I'm like, oh, that guy's, no, of course not. No, I always mix up ages on television. I have no idea the concept of time.
No, yeah.
All right, Jax, I think we better start talking about our main topic here for today. The actual video game topic. Today, ladies and gentlemen of the pod, we are talking about System Shock. The game, and also I guess the legacy that is System Shock 1 and 2. This is an older horror FPS RPG, which is quite a mouthful, but essentially it's a fantastic game. Jax and I have both played. Jax has beaten all of the second one, correct, Jax?
Yeah, and I would have played the first one, but I've been waiting for the remake, which, according to Steam, is due to drop this month in March. So we thought it'd be a perfect time to talk about System Shock, the franchise in general. We'll probably focus a bit more on 2, as we've both played 2. But I know my way around and the lore and story of System Shock in general, and just what it because it was one of the first in the 90s, one of the first RPG based FPS games. So it was so around that time you'd have had a lot of FPS games and a lot of RPG, but not the two together. And I think that's sort of what kind of this franchise sort of pioneered in a way, and then it inspired a lot of similar games in that sort of genre and sci-fi and stuff. When you think of games like Bioshock, you know very well, Deus Ex Machina, Deus Ex, what is it? I remember. I didn't play that game. I do remember it.
Deus Ex Machina.
360 was that the 360 era?
Is it?
Deus Ex.
Deus Ex Machina. I can't talk. Grammar is hard. That one. You guys know what... No, I'm keeping this in. You guys know what game I'm talking about. Yes, that is an inspiration for those. This game came out in 1999. Jax, just some quick backstory on the company and everything behind that. The developer is Night Dive Studios. You may have heard of them. They have basically gotten the rights to some older games and are re-releasing them on newer platforms like Steam. So if you go to them on Steam and click on them as a company, you'll see a bunch of older games that they have essentially remastered and made sure that we are able to play them through the Steam platform, which I think is good.
Nice. No, it is good. I remember who was it? I think it was... I want to say it was Lizard Cube. It's a company that does something similar that did it. I think Lizard Cube and .emu. One of them's the developer, one's the publisher. And they did it for a lot of classic games. Like, they did Streets of Rage. They made the Streets of Rage 4, but they also re-released Wonder Boy 3, which was a very special game to me. It was one of the first games I ever played.
What is Wonder Boy 3?
It was a game that came out on the Master System. It was the first game I'd ever picked up and played when I was very, very young. And they remade it back here, I think it was 5-6 years ago. They remade it and brought it out on the newer consoles and all that sort of stuff. And they do that with some other very classic games. So it is good to see that companies do that if they're able to acquire the rights to those games and then breathe new life into them and give them to a new audience and stuff, which I think is really cool. And so Night Dive have done that with, apparently some other games like you said, and they're doing it with System Shock, which is really cool because it's a cult classic. It's got a huge fan base. The original games didn't actually sell that well, despite the games like the original in 94 and System Shock 2 in 99, which was then, I think it was acquired or published by EA, the System Shock 2.
Oh, really?
Both games didn't sell well at all, despite being really highly rated. So I think, what I'd like to think is that when the System Shock remake happens, it will do well. I like to think it does anyway. Especially with a lot of other... Sorry, very quickly, just especially a lot of other sci-fi horror games sort of around this time as well, like the Dead Space remakes and Callisto Protocol and stuff like that. So I think the newer audience can be there for System Shock as well if it's marketed as well. Yeah.
Do you think it's, I guess just really quick, do you think it's been marketed enough? Because I didn't even know this was being remade until you told me about it.
I'll be very honest, I've been very confused and I think there's been a lot of there was a hiatus on the game being developed, the remake, and the only reason I looked at it was because I was going to look, because I had System Shock 2 in my library, and after I completed it I wanted to look for System Shock 1, and that's when I found out I only found out through Steam when I searched up System Shock 1 and saw the remake that was dropping, and I've pre-purchased it, not realizing that it isn't actually out yet. And it's not like a pre-order, because it doesn't, as far as I'm aware, and I've tried to look into this, there's not it says March 2023, but there's not an actual like hard date on when it's dropping. So again, there has been like a beta test demo, I think, that dropped not that long ago in February. So yeah, it has been, I don't know how well marketed it has, but with the internet the way it is now, it's on like IGN and stuff like that. So for the most part, the word gets out through sort of one medium or another. Yeah. But yeah, so I probably could have been better maybe, but at the same time, it is appealing to its original core fan base.
Right.
Like first and foremost, I guess.
And speaking of the core fan base, when I was researching this, before the pod, because I do a tiny bit of research, guys. Like, we don't do a ton, but we do a tiny bit. I gotta make sure I know what I'm talking about. Apparently, there's like still a modding community for it. So, Jax, I don't know if you played System Shock 2 with the mods installed, but there's still a community behind that, like improving certain aspects to the game, while still maintaining the core concept of it. So there are certain mods that can be added optionally to, maybe make the game a little bit different, like enemy reskins and stuff, which, not recommended. But there is like this core package of mod that you can get, which essentially just updates like little graphical things, like how some of the signs aren't very like high resolution.
Yeah.
They go through and just update a little stuff like that, or like little mechanics that are at the original part of the game sort of like not glitched, but are doing certain things that aren't supposed to be doing. They go through and fix that. So like you said, there's still like a huge community behind it, even though this game is, oh my god, it's 24 years old. Yeah.
Makes
imagine that.
We feel old. Oh god. Oh man, 1999. I remember that.
Oh my. Do you? What were you doing in 1999?
On our New Year's Eve party for the Millennium, I was throwing up, as everyone saw in the new year, the 2000 and new Millennium. That's what I was doing, and I was 9. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
God. That's all I remember.
Yeah. Anyway, enough of that. So, looking at, I'm just on Night Dive's site because I wanted to look a little bit at the company before we talk about it. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, this is like their first game that they're essentially making, right? Like we said, they did acquire the rights to remaster these games. Remaster, is that the correct word?
Yeah, be mindful. I think I said this before.
We've had this conversation before.
I was going to say,
that's why I'm asking.
Very hard line on this. So remaster is like it's not changing anything about the gameplay or anything like that, and it might add some little bits here and there just to like neaten it up, but it's mainly a graphical thing when they remaster a game, whereas a remake will change a lot of the gameplay and locations and stuff like that to maybe fit even partly in like a new narrative and stuff. Like it's completely overhauling the game.
So that is correct. So they have remastered all of these games by getting the rights to it so far, but this is their first remake with System Shock 2.
Yeah.
Where they are taking a little bit more liberty than some of the other games. So, I don't know. I find that interesting that this is the first time that they're essentially making a game. Do you think that's going to be rough in regards to some of the marketing and stuff? Like people knowing about the company in general and like being like, oh, well, they haven't released any games.
I don't think so. I mean, I think that's sort of an unfair thing, because that's kind of like the whole, oh, you can't get a job unless you have experience sort of thing. Like,
yeah.
So like, and if that was the case, then like, where would indie devs be? You know, so
That's true.
I wouldn't really agree with that. Plus, I do remember hearing like positive feedback about the February. I think it was like Game Fest demo or something. I can't remember exactly. But there was a lot of positive feedback. So I'm personally like not worried. I think it will do it. I think they will do the game justice. Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it, to be honest, because I can't even remember why exactly I jumped into System Shock 2. I played it 3 years ago on the channel. Let's play. Link in description. I'm joking. I will
Shout out.
Don't worry. I remember hearing about how much of a good game it was. I can't remember why. But yeah, it was one of the first RPG FPS games, and I was just like, I'll try it out. And I must admit, getting to grips with the gameplay, it did actually take me a little while to sort of wrap my head around the RPG elements of it.
Yeah.
But sort of once you understand like the modules and like upgrading your character into obviously like certain skills and stuff like that, the game becomes really fun actually. Like
once you understand all the
does
concepts,
it very well. Just to sort of like touch on the gameplay of System Shock 2 specifically, the inventory management, like a lot of this stuff for me is very much ahead of its time. Like it had the inventory management, the amount of different type of combat that it had, from like the melee stuff. Obviously it had sort of your average like shooting and gun mechanics, but it also had like alien tech weapons that were powered by like worms and other like random stuff. You know, certain guns would only work on certain enemies. And the game was a challenge. Like it wasn't straightforward at all. And I think that's sort of a marker of a lot of older games that we might sometimes talk about. A lot of older games are not easy. Like just straight up, they can be quite difficult and quite challenging, especially towards the end of System Shock 2. It becomes quite difficult. I remember getting really frustrated with a couple of sections towards the end because I kept dying and I kept dying a lot, and I decided I had to track back like quite far to go get more stuff and like sort my character out and stuff like that, and then come back, and then I managed to beat the section where I got stuck at. And the gameplay, I got lost in it. It was a lot of fun. I think it just took me a little while to understand.
Right. And I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing at all. That's good, because then you feel more accomplished learning all the mechanics and all the knowledge of the game itself. Maybe we should take a step back, Jax, and talk about the story of the game for a second for people that don't know. So there is System Shock 1 and 2, and in System Shock 1, and I believe that there is a computer virus that essentially is taking over a city called the Citadel, and essentially is stopped by the main character called the Hacker. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Hacker. Yeah.
The Hacker. And that's all you really need to know. System Shock 2, you don't necessarily need to know about System Shock 1.
See, yeah, this is the interesting thing, right? So originally the games were standalone, but I think in '99, when EA took it over for the publishing, they either retconned or they changed it so that there was like a canonical link between the two. So I think at some point at the end of System Shock 1, or when there was something like a particular part of the Citadel, a grove, was jettisoned.
Okay.
A part of Shodan, which is you'll see it on any System Shock thumbnail, the creepy AI face, the main antagonist of the whole franchise, Shodan, a part of that AI remained on that jettisoned piece of ship, that grove, as it were, because obviously in the original System Shock, at the end, the Hacker beats Showdown, you think obviously it's done, but it's not. And then System Shock 2 comes along, and I think it's something like it's quite it's like at least like 40 to I think it's like 40 years I want to say between System Shock 1 and 2, and I can't remember how exactly it worked, but Showdown is obviously on a part of this ship, the ship where the main part of System Shock 2 takes place, and then you're playing as a soldier who's been cryogenically frozen. And Showdown has essentially created a bunch of weird creatures called the Many.
The Many.
The Many,
like
yeah.
Little worms that are...
That are weird. There's some weird moments in System Shock. It's very 80s and 90s sci-fi, and that's kind of what's really cool about it. I like especially in the I can't remember what the area is called, but it's like the embodiment of the Many. You're in like some fleshy. It's like you're inside the body or the mind of the Many, and it's all like. It's like you're in a human body, if you like. It's very strange, because you go from obviously being in like the ship to being in this fleshy, disgusting area. It's very cool the way it was done, I gotta say.
Yeah. So when I saw the intro and I first saw that worm on the ground, which was part of the Many, I was like, oh my god, what the heck is that? And my immediate thought went back to, have you heard of the old 80s horror movie, The Thing?
Yeah, I have. I've never watched the original, actually, but like I've seen that one clip, the infamous clip where it's like, I'm trying to describe. I don't quite know how to describe it, but it's the Thing. I don't know if it's like bursting out of him exactly, or it's...
Yeah, were they all around the dinner table, and then the guy all of a sudden is like, oh, my stomach hurts, and then like the
No, you're thinking of Alien.
Oh, that is Alien. Okay.
Yeah, you're thinking of Alien.
Okay, there's a scene like that, I think, and it's been a while since I listened to it. I'm a big, like...
I was going to say, I know my Alien, don't worry, dude, but I have not seen The Thing. But yeah, it's that's, again, Alien very much... would have inspired some of this as well. Yeah.
It reminded me of that. Yeah, I'm a big fraidy cat, and I don't like horror movies. I can't watch horror movies. It's just not something I can do. But I do have a podcast that I listen to, which summarizes every single horror movie. And essentially, in that movie, The Thing, there's like a virus that is essentially like an alien virus that shapeshifts into everyone. And so it immediately reminded me of that, being the way that the Many sort of like it takes over the bodies of everyone, and then like, they become zombies or whatnot. But yeah, you can tell the game for sure takes some inspiration from old 80s, 90s horror movies, which is very cool to see.
For sure, yeah.
But yeah, your character essentially is a soldier, and I thought it was really cool in the beginning when you got to pick like your skill set and stuff. I thought that was really well made. What they do essentially is they're like, okay, soldier, pick where you're gonna be stationed this year. And it's like year 1, and then like you go and it's like, do you want to be with this survival corps, or do you want to go with these scientist soldier boys? And like whatever you pick, like you get like a +2 in like endurance or something like that. So you're sort of like picking your history of your character with your stats. And I just thought it was a cool way to like frame your character, because normally like in games, I don't know, they just sort of like throw you into it, and it sort of builds something up for you, right?
It's funny when you talk about that. It sounds like really good, but when I started playing it, I wanted to get out of that tutorial and all of that section so fast, because I was like, oh my god, I'm so... But like, please get me out of this whole bit. Like, I was like, I don't care. I'm going to go into this section. I remember now. I literally was just like, skip. I just want to get to the good bit. I want to get to what's going on. And yeah, it's funny because, like you say, you talk about it. It's like it is a good way of essentially like sort of starting off your skill tree and choosing the areas you want to focus on. It actually is. Like, I'm talking about it now, and it does make sense. But when I loaded the game up and that's sort of what you end up starting with, I was very much like, ugh.
When is the game gonna start? I mean,
exactly.
I understand your point, because like when the game actually starts, there is like a 8-minute cutscene essentially before you're even controlling your character. So I understand if by that point you're like, I just want to play the game. But it still puts good emphasis, I think, on your character and caring about them, which I thought was good.
There is also, I know you love backtracking, dude. There's a decent amount of like backtracking and exploration as well, you know. I wonder if you like that aspect of it.
I don't know. When you say this game is hard, I feel like I can sense that even with the small amount of gameplay that I played. Because like in the beginning of the game, there's a part where you're supposed to get like an energy cell charged, and they give you the energy cell, and for like 2 minutes I was like, why isn't this energy cell going this thing? And it's like, oh, it's not charged. I have to go backtrack to figure out where the charger is for it and then come back to it. So like I think right away they're introducing like, okay, you're going to have to put in work for the game. But yeah, I could tell right away that like there's some aspect of like, okay, yeah, the answer's not right there in front of you right away. But I don't know. Yeah, I think that's fine. Like, to an extent, as long as they don't make you go from, like, way one end of the ship to the other. Is there a fast travel system later, or no?
Nah, I don't think it warrants... from memory, I don't think there is. But I think there is lifts that sort of speed things up, but they take you to different levels anyway, I guess. I don't know if it necessarily warrants it, because you can move around quick enough that it's not really an issue, or at least it wasn't for me. And you know, I'm someone that's not a huge fan of backtracking and stuff. Unless it sort of works, and in this case, it works quite well. I just want to touch back on the sort of narrative side of it. So, again, this is another game where, again, I think it influenced a lot of games that came after it with the way it uses audio logs for its lore. Yes. Don't get me wrong, it's not the only one that done it at that time, but there was obviously a lot of games after it that clearly took that same level of inspiration. It's like, if you don't want to throw like additional pieces of the world in your face, or like do like half an hour's worth of exposition, because that would just bore people.
Yeah,
you do it in audio logs, and you can play the audio logs and keep running around and doing stuff as you go, which I think is, again, it's another good way of sort of building the world and getting you more immersed into that world and that story. And then you obviously, just going back to Shodan, the AI, the scary AI, and it's great because obviously at certain times during the game, the voice will just start talking to you, and throughout it's so creepy. Even though like the game, like you say, it's like 24 years old or whatever, it's so creepy, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it in a remake and just hearing how creepy they've got that voice this time. Because and to say the game was ahead of its time for a lot of reasons is definitely valid, but also for the point where it was talking about how AI is potentially very dangerous, and how, you know, it's a very hot topic at the moment with a lot of going on with stuff like ChatGPT and people's worry that AI is going to put people out of jobs, and what could AI do further, and all these corporations making like robots, and then you see clips of these robots, these AI freaking like synth robots talking about, like, saying weird stuff that they shouldn't. Like, if I had free will, I would, I don't know, kill everyone or something. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, it's ahead of its time, and it's not too crazy to think that someone's going to mess up when they create an AI that's too advanced for them to control.
Oh yeah.
And then we are all the people who are going to suffer because of it. And then it's going to be Terminator.
It'll just be Terminator in 20 years. Yeah, why not? We've already gone through so much.
Or iRobot. Have you ever watched iRobot?
I have watched iRobot.
That is one of my favourite films of all time.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I've never read the book. Like, so I remember I went to the cinema to see it with my friends, and my dad wanted to go because he'd read the book. It's just very well. Like, the film was okay, but like, just I should read the book. But the sort of the understanding behind like the 3 laws, I just thought was very clever.
Yeah.
And even though they sort of like broke the three laws, if you like, and they become sort of sentient, I don't know. I just thought it was very clever and not surprising that mankind creates something it can't control.
Classic us. Just really looping back. Okay, you said that it was really scary when Shodan essentially talks in your head. Would you say that's the scariest part of the game? Because I want to know more of your thoughts in regards to the horror aspect of the game. In regards to, like, because when I was playing, like, the enemies, they're not that scary as models.
I was going to say that, yeah.
However, what I experienced was I still felt a little, I don't know if fear is the right word, but there was a point where the enemies just kept coming out of nowhere, and I didn't know when they'd stop. And for me, that was still, like, a little bit intense and horrifying, because I didn't know what was going on. Was there? Can you remember an exact moment of, like, I don't know, when an enemy dropped down from the ceiling suddenly, or like stuff like that? Is there kind of horror mechanics that go into the game?
I think, yeah, you've got to bear in mind that if you played it when it came out back in the 90s, you would be scared by a lot of it, right? Because those models are probably the top end of, like, graphical
right.
like PC standards at that time or whatever, you know. And obviously now it probably
Not
doesn't
so
even come
much.
close. If you play, like, you know, I played this 3 years ago, you played this like this year, so in that regard, sort of no. But there are occasions where they use the sound design really well to build up atmosphere.
Yeah.
Like you say, the enemies themselves, it's kind of hard to be scared of them because of the amount of polygons that you can count on one hand, sort of thing.
Right.
But it does its best, and again, the game is very old, but it does its best to create those moments, like opening a door and there's a guy like right there and stuff like that. And those moments will kind of just by the pure shock of it make you go, oh. It's not really in a jump scare as such.
Yeah.
Especially when I'll say, like, I love the soundtrack for System Shock 2 specifically, but a lot of the time it's quite sort of, I don't want to say like heavy metal, but like it's sort of like almost like a motivational, like, I'm trying to think of the right word. But it kind of like gets you going, like gets you motivated to blow things up and shoot things. So like sometimes it will use the sound design really well in that regard, and then other times it will slow it down and try and build up suspense. A lot of the times when you're listening to Shodan, or you're going through sort of a more sort of creepy area, if you like, but as you say, you're not someone that enjoys horror games like so much. You'd be fine.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't necessarily worried about, like, oh my god, can I play this whole entire game? I just wanted to know how well the horror is still adapted with the outdated graphics. And in regards to, you know, some of the things, it still sounds like it could be scary. So, but like, I know what you're saying about the music, because like the first time that I encountered an enemy in the game, all of a sudden, like, this electronic, like, doom music almost kicked in.
Yeah.
And like all of a sudden I was like, oh my god, the music is slapping right now.
Yeah.
It wants me to go hard. Okay.
But the battle music is really good. Yeah.
The battle music was so good. It was so amazing. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay, I want to pivot for a second. And I want to talk about how this game is an RPG, because I feel conflicted in regards to the definition of an RPG game in general, I guess. A role-playing
we're
game.
We're going to be nitpicky, are we?
I'm not nitpicking the game, but I just want to understand, because when I read the description in FPS RPG horror, I'm like, this is an RPG game? How does that make sense? And if this is an RPG game, from what I understand, it's an RPG game because you're getting into the role of the soldier. You know, you're role-playing as him. You got your inventory, and that's a huge, heavy RPG aspect. But if this is classified as an RPG game, then I feel like a lot of games are classified as an RPG game, right? Does that mean, like, BioShock in itself is classified as an RPG game? Or do you think the RPG definition is changed over time? We don't got to spend a lot of time on this, but I need to talk about it.
No, that's fine. I think it would. I think RPG potentially has changed over time, like the definition.
Yeah.
Not so much the definition, but like how people use it for like talking about games. But in terms of System Shock 2, I think where it's taken the genre of RPG is in the protagonist skill set building and stuff like that, like the skill tree and like the modules for upgrading your character and upgrading sort of the engineer aspects and all the other ones I can't remember off the top of my head. That those sorts of elements are something that I would consider to be in an RPG first and foremost, an RPG genre first and foremost before anything else. So when you're like upgrading your character and you're choosing different routes to sort of go
increase
down
your certain stats.
Where else do you think that sort of that type of character building or leveling up sort of thing, where would that sit before it would sit in an RPG type of game?
Where would it sit before it would sit in an RPG
yeah
type
like
game?
If you're saying it's not an RPG, where does that type of gameplay, like what genre does it fit in if it doesn't fit into an RPG category? Because that's where I think it fits perfectly.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because there's like, I guess it sort of depends. Because like, I'm just trying to think of like games in general. There are certain upgrades, but maybe not to the extent of a talent tree in itself or a skill tree. Same thing. It's nitpicking names.
Yeah.
But I guess to that extent. But just to bring it back to like the BioShock, like you can upgrade your weapons, but that's not necessarily the same as skill points. Exactly. Like, do I upgrade A or B? This is more like, do I want to upgrade A, B, C, D, E, F, G? And
compare it to something similar at its time, like Doom. You wouldn't necessarily think of Doom as an RPG. That's just a first-person shooter, right?
Right. Yeah.
Doom was a bit earlier, but yeah, it's a fair comparison, I think.
Okay.
If the module upgrading and that element of the game wasn't there, then I think it's fair to say it's just an FPS or like a horror, sci-fi horror FPS. Yeah, FPS probably first, but that element adds another layer and improves the gameplay and changes it in a certain way where you are able to pick what parts of the character you want to improve, what areas of it you want to focus on. Right. Yeah, you're sort of role playing a particular. You're role play. Everyone's role playing that guy, but you get to do it. You kind of do it in your own way.
Right.
So yeah, to answer your question, it is an RPG.
I wasn't just to defend myself. I wasn't trying to say it wasn't. I just wanted to talk about the aspect of why it was, I guess, because
it's a good topic actually.
Yeah, three years ago, I made a YouTube video trying to find what an RPG was, and I still struggle to this day, I guess, to narrow down what an RPG is. So I just like to bring up the topic.
Did you type it into Google?
I did. Of course I did. Come on now.
It's just, it is an interesting topic. Don't get me wrong, because, like you say, like a lot of games now will fall into that category. Because so many games are like open world, and a lot of games will inherently like have like a skill tree and stuff, and that just makes them an art that puts them into that category, of a role playing game. But then it's sort of like, well, the definition role playing. So you're playing a particular role. Could that just mean that you are just playing a character?
Yeah,
and then
It's
exactly.
so why it's like that's all I'm saying is that
yeah.
people can misunderstand it, or people can use it as a broad definition when it might not necessarily be an RPG for other people. That's why I struggle with it. I did not expect us to be talking about this on System Shock 2. I'm sorry.
But like Wikipedia's definition is a role-playing game is a game in which players assume the roles of characters.
That could be anyone.
So
that's every game.
Almost every video game. Like
Right. Exactly my point. Yeah.
So yeah. It's just so there you go. So that's why every game's an RPG, mate.
we might have to do another episode.
We could do a whole episode talking about that. To be fair, yeah.
Deconstruction of the essence of an RPG. we'll bring facts and evidence in regards to what games are in our non-RPG.
Hey, that sounds good. I'll add it to the schedule.
Oh, wonderful.
On the whole, I would certainly rate System Shock 2 or the System Shock series in general as something that if you enjoy RPGs. No, it's definitely worth, if you want to wait until the System Shock remakes come in, maybe try that out first. But the game has a really compelling narrative. If you're going to obviously play sort of the older ones, you obviously have to bear in mind when they came out back in the 90s.
Of course.
But they are really fun. Like I say, the RPG elements and the gameplay of like the FPS, it is a genuinely really fun game. And whilst obviously trying to be horror-y in certain aspects, horror-y. And creepy in certain aspects, it probably won't seem like that to people that have never played the game, especially like newer generations who might jump into something like System Shock 2. That's why I'm looking forward to System Shock, the System Shock remake. But just as a game, I genuinely really enjoyed it, and I was surprised about the fact that I stuck around to it, because I have a really tough time sticking with games if I struggle to enjoy the start of it. I don't know if it's like an ADHD thing or something, I don't know. But like, I was on episode 19 or something of the game by the time I finished it. And I'm really glad I did, because the ending was great. Showdown is creepy. This game was, and the original, very ahead of its time. And I'm really looking forward to playing the remake, where it's going to be, I'm pretty sure that they're going to focus a lot on the horror, like a lot more horror elements. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the scarier side of the game. So yeah, definitely passes the vibe for me.
Oh, nice. So good. I would like to play all of this game. As you guys know, I've said it a bunch of times, I'm a huge BioShock fan, and even the small amount of gameplay that I played preparing for this podcast, I could see these similarities, and the reason why BioShock quoted System Shock as an inspiration for it. There's a bunch of little things that I could go into details of what I noticed just within the small amount of time that I saw, but I would like to definitely pay homage to the original game source by beating it and looking at the storyline. So I'm going to say it passes the vibe for me as well. And in conclusion, I think we should all bully Jax to play BioShock 1. And
I
I
never
think
got a
this is
comment,
a
do you
great
remember?
conclusion for the episode.
There was never a comment that someone said I should play it, and I said if there was a comment from that video that said I needed to play it, then I would have played it. And I gotta be honest, dude, I have got like that'll be. I'll tell you what, I'll put that in my spreadsheet of games to complete for 2024.
Oh my gosh,
so
it makes me so happy.
Do you know? Just out of curiosity, you say you want to play through obviously both System Shock 1 and 2. System Shock 2 is 13 and a half hours for just
That's
the main
not that
objectives.
bad at all. 13 and a half?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's not too
I'd say
bad.
it probably took me around sort of, maybe like 10 to 12.
Okay. Yeah.
If you're a gamer that strives to see all aspects of the game, if you are a completionist, you will spend around 22 and a half hours.
I am not, so I won't.
That'd be like getting all the audio logs and stuff like that. But see, this was back at a good time where you didn't have to. There wasn't like an achievement to collect 1,000 feathers in like random locations or like 10,000 Korok seeds or something. You know?
Are there achievements in this game? Points, items per shot.
I'm not sure actually.
Let me check. I'm gonna double check really quick, just because now I'm curious. I don't think there were though.
No.
There's trading
when they
cards,
added it
but
to
no,
Steam,
there's no
for
achievements.
example.
Okay, cool, good. It doesn't need it, so. Well, thank you once again for listening to our lovely podcast, Video Game Vibes. We will be back in 2 weeks with another episode for you. It's gonna be so
glad
good.
to know how long we take between publishing videos.
Listen,
it's always 2 weeks.
I mean, maybe someday it'll be weekly, but for right now it's bi-weekly. So there you go.
You still got COVID brain, haven't you, dude?
Yeah, I do.
But yeah,
if
every
you would,
2 weeks, guys.
If you would like to support us, please go on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, any of those places. Rate us 5 stars. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you want to see the visual. Well, I guess Spotify is the visuals too.
I love that we both only learned that Spotify can play a video of like
It's
a podcast.
new.
Like,
It's
I
new.
only figured that out like a last year. So yeah,
We're professionals.
Yeah. Well, we try. We try, guys. But as always, like if you're on YouTube or you just want to email us or comment or whatever, do let us know. We're always trying to improve. We had some good feedback on a previous pod, and we always try and take all the constructive feedback. But yeah, we're just chilling, we're just vibing, and look forward to the next one in a couple of weeks. Thank you again so much for watching, and we will see you again soon.
I'm dancing to outro music.
The outro music is great, by the way. I love it. It should be our intro music, but it's far too chill. Okay, bye.
Bye.